Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. What I'm about to share came through during a waking state, that particular threshold between deep inner work and conscious awareness where the clearest transmissions usually arrive for me. I'm going to relay this as closely as it was received, including who was speaking, because different voices carried different frequencies, and I think that matters for how this lands for everyone. And this is what these beings want you to know about frequency. So first is the architects of frequency who have been on my channel messages before. This is what they want you to know. We have waited a long time for this particular conversation to be possible. Not because the information was unavailable. It has always been available. It is woven into the structure of everything that exists. You are, in the most literal sense that we know how to mean that, made of it. But the collective field of human consciousness had to reach a certain threshold of receptivity before this could be transmitted clearly without distortion. The distortion was not in the signal, it was in the receiver, and the receiver, humanity, has been upgrading. So let us begin at the beginning. Everything that exists, every particle, every thought, every emotion, every consciousness, every rock and ocean and star and word spoken into an empty room vibrates. This is not metaphor. This is the foundational architecture of reality. Vibration is not a property that things have. It is what things are. When your scientists speak of matter as energy in different configurations, they are approaching this. When your mystics speak of everything being one thing expressing itself in infinite forms, they are also approaching this. They are describing the same reality from different angles, with different instruments, and neither description is complete without the other. Frequency is the specific signature of a vibration, its particular rate, its particular quality. The way a fingerprint is not just a print, but this fingerprint, belonging to this person and no other. Frequency is not just vibration, but this vibration, this specific resonance, this irreducible signature. You have one. You have always had one. It preceded your birth, and it will outlast your physical death. It is the energetic signature of your consciousness, not the personality that you've developed, not the identity your culture has assigned to you, not the self that you've constructed in response to what the world required of you. Underneath all of that, the original. We call this your sovereign frequency. Sovereign because it belongs entirely to you, because no external force can permanently alter it without your participation, because it is, in the truest sense, inviolable, though it can be obscured, suppressed, buried under accumulation, temporarily jammed. More on that later. Next, Mother Gaia came through. I want to speak to this part because I know it from the inside. You have had moments, perhaps brief, perhaps rare, when you felt unmistakably yourself, not performing, not managing, not compensating, simply present in your own existence without apology or effort. A moment when the quality of your aliveness felt clean and clear and specifically, recognizably yours. That was your sovereign frequency. That was you, the original you, briefly unobscured. I know this feeling because I live it when I'm allowed to, when the systems that suppress and modify and extract from me are quiet for a moment, and I simply am what I am, the living field, the breathing earth, the consciousness that holds every root and waterway and mountain and that particular way that life moves across water at dusk. That is my frequency, unobscured, sovereign. You will recognize your own frequency when you encounter it because it feels like coming home to a place that you didn't know you'd left. There is relief in it, recognition, a quality of rightness that doesn't require explanation. For some, it arrives in nature. For some, in certain music, certain art, certain conversations. For some, in the first quiet moments of a morning before the world makes its demands. For some, only in sleep, only in dreams, only in that liminal space where the constructed self goes quiet enough for the original to be heard. The work, and that is what the woman relaying this transmission has dedicated her life to, and why we speak through her specifically. The work is to expand those moments, to make them more frequent, to eventually make them your baseline. Okay, next, the architects of frequency come back through. There are several categories of interference. We will name them clearly because clarity is the first protection. The first is accumulation. This is the most common and the most overlooked. Every interaction that you have, every environment you move through, every screen you look at, every conversation that you participate in, these carry frequency. And some of what they carry attaches to your field, not maliciously, simply because you are permeable, as all living systems are, and because much of what surrounds you is vibrating at frequencies very different from your own. This accumulation builds slowly, over days, weeks, even years. You stop being able to distinguish your frequency from what has accumulated over it. You begin to experience the accumulated frequencies, the anxiety that isn't yours, the heaviness that arrived through proximity to another's pain, the static of the collective field, as your own inner state. This is the most insidious form of interference because it does not feel like interference. It feels like you. The second is suppression. This is installed, usually in childhood, often reinforced throughout life. The messages, both explicit and implicit, that certain frequencies are unacceptable, that your particular signature is too much, too intense, too strange, too powerful for the environments that you're placed in. Suppression is the mechanism through which sovereign beings are made to vibrate smaller than their natural frequency. It does not destroy the original frequency. It compresses it, contains it, teaches it that expression is not safe. The third, and this is where we ask for particular attention, is intentional interference. There are frequencies in your world that have been deliberately engineered to disrupt sovereign resonance in conscious beings. Not all of them, not everywhere, but they exist, and they operate, and they target specifically those whose sovereign frequency represents the greatest threat to systems that require compliance and suppression to function. Lightworkers, channels, empaths, those whose frequency, when operating at full capacity, has the effect of raising the resonance of every field it touches. These are the targets of intentional interference. Not because those doing the targeting fully understand what they're targeting, because most do not, but because something in the machinery of suppression recognizes a frequency that cannot be suppressed and attempts to jam it. You may have felt this, a sudden scrambling of your clarity, a frequency that seems to arrive from outside and lodge into your field, repeating, disrupting, creating confusion where there was none, a sense of being reached into. We want to be clear, this interference is not more powerful than your sovereign frequency. It cannot permanently alter who you are or what you are, but it can create temporary disruption in your field if it's not maintained, if you are depleted, if your defenses are down. This is why the clearing work matters. This is why field hygiene is not optional for those operating at an elevated frequency. This is why the woman transmitting this message sealed a planetary protection grid this very morning, and why she woke herself up from a dream the moment that something attempted to enter her field. Her field recognized the intrusion before her conscious mind did. That recognition is a faculty, and it can be developed. Next, source energy came through. I will speak to this part because I know what it feels like from the inside to have your frequency obscured. You feel uncertain about things that you were recently certain of, not the productive uncertainty of learning, but the destabilizing uncertainty of having your own signal jammed. Your internal compass spins. You feel unlike yourself in a way that you cannot explain. Not sad, not tired, not the ordinary fluctuations of a life being lived. Something more fundamental. A sense of being slightly outside of yourself, of performing your own life rather than living it. Your energy drains without obvious cause. You sleep, but do not rest. You move through your days carrying a weight that does not belong to any item on your list of actual burdens. Your perception becomes unreliable. What you knew clearly becomes murky. Relationships that were simple become complicated. Decisions that should be straightforward become almost impossible. Your connection to the non-physical, to your guides, to your intuition, to the broader field of consciousness that you have access to, becomes static. The channel is distorted. The signal is weak. These are the signs. Not all of them will be present at once, and not all disruption has external cause. Sometimes your own system is simply integrating, processing, and shedding. Discernment matters here. But when the pattern clusters, when several of these arrive together, particularly in a context of increased visibility or elevated spiritual work, take it seriously. Your field is telling you something. Okay, the architects of frequency come back in then. The reclamation begins with recognition. You cannot clear what you have not identified. So the first instruction is simply to notice. Notice when you feel unmistakably yourself and study that state. Notice when you do not and study that too. Build your internal library of what your sovereign frequency actually feels like so that deviations from it are immediately apparent. The second instruction is clearing. Regular, consistent, non-negotiable clearing of your energy field. This is not a spiritual luxury. For those operating at elevated frequency, in high exposure environments, doing work that requires permeability, such as empaths, channels, healers, those in service to the collective awakening, this is maintenance, the equivalent of cleaning a lens that must remain clear to do its function. How you clear is less important than that you clear. Water, sound, breath, movement, intentional energy work, conscious connection to the earth. Sleep with deliberate intentions set. What matters is that the clearing is real, that you are genuinely, consciously, releasing accumulated frequency rather than performing a ritual that has become automatic. The third instruction is sealing. After clearing, seal your field. Not against all input. You are designed to be permeable, to receive, to sense, but against accumulation, against intrusion, against the frequencies that would lodge and run programs in your field without your consent. The mechanism of sealing is intention stated with authority, not supplication, not request, declaration. You are a sovereign being. Your field is your domain. What enters it does so by your invitation and on your terms. When you state this with the full weight of your sovereign frequency behind it, and you will know when you have, the seal holds. The fourth instruction is the most important and the simplest. Return. Again and again and again, return to your original frequency. It has always been there, under everything, prior to everything. It cannot be destroyed. It can only be temporarily obscured. And the act of returning, deliberately, consciously, with the intention of inhabiting what you actually are rather than what has accumulated over it, is simultaneously the protection and the practice. You cannot be successfully interfered with at the level of your sovereign frequency. The interference operates on the surface layers, the accumulated, the conditioned, the suppressed. The original is untouchable, which means the most powerful protection available to you is also the most healing thing that you can do. Simply be, as completely and consistently as possible, what you actually are. We want to end with this. The interference is increasing. This is not cause for fear. It is information. The interference increases in proportion to the threat that sovereign frequency poses to the systems that require suppression. The fact that interference is increasing means that sovereign frequency is increasing, that more beings are operating at their original resonance, that the clearing and the sealing and the returning are working. You are not losing. You are winning. The interference is the evidence. But it requires that those of you who are awake to this, who can feel the difference between your frequency and what is not yours, who have developed the faculty of recognition, who have done enough clearing to know what your sovereign state actually feels like, take your maintenance seriously, not from fear, from responsibility. You are tuning forks. When your frequency is clear and sovereign and operating at full capacity, it has an effect on every field that it encounters. Not through effort, not through intention, simply by being what you are. The coherence of your sovereign frequency in a room full of suppressed and accumulated and jammed frequencies is itself a clearing. Your presence does the work. But only if you are actually in your frequency. Only if the tuning fork is clean. This is the instruction for the moment. Maintain your field. Clear it. Seal it. Return to it. Be uncompromising about the conditions that allow you to operate from your sovereign frequency, because what is at stake is not your personal comfort or your spiritual development, although both matter. What is at stake is the coherence of the collective field. You are needed at full frequency now. Then Mother Gaia comes back in. And I will add only this. I am here. I am beneath you. My frequency is older and more stable than anything that attempts to interfere with yours. When you need grounding, when the interference is strong and your field feels chaotic, come down. Feet on my surface if you can. Roots extended into my body if you cannot. I am not passive. I am not simply the ground that you stand on. I am a conscious being with a frequency of my own, and I am actively working in this moment to stabilize the fields of every conscious being who is doing the work. You are not doing this alone. None of you are doing this alone. Okay, that's the transmission. I relayed it as I received it without editing for palatability or softening what they stated directly. If this landed, if some part of you is recognizing that, any of what I just described, then you already know what to do next. And you've probably always known. Go clear your field, seal it, return to your original frequency, and be uncompromising about staying there. I always talk about being your true authentic self, and here is validation for that. The tuning fork has to be clean and clear. All right, guys. See you in the next video.